Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a link in the info box, or there is a super chat that runs alongside these shows while they are live. But most importantly, if you would like to join the debate, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. In a moment, I'm going to transition straight across to the Hangout, as we do have a couple of guests all waiting to be introduced. But in the meantime, if you are watching the show now, please share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. And with that, I'll say my first introduction to Ranty, as he was here first. How you doing, Ranty? Good to have you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
And also,
won't be here for not too long though, because I have to go out soon.
Indeedy, but you've got some interesting news, which I will get to in a second. We're also joined by Chris Monk. How you doing, Chris? Good to have you. Hopefully you can hear us.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Similar, I'll hang for a little bit, and then you guys could carry on. But thank you for. Good morning.
There, probably 3 a.m. But yes, we've also got Sleeping Warrior. How you doing, Sleeping Warrior?
All is well. All is well. Hopefully the dog will be good today, and I won't have to do a sloppy poo tidy up.
Hopefully not.
We're good to go.
So, Ranty, what is it about Soundly that you wanted to tell the audience straight away?
Well, he put a video up saying this evening's photos, and what he'd done is he didn't have time to go through them all. So he was going through them individually, one by one, and it's quite hilarious actually, because he's actually looking at 23 miles, sometimes 26 miles away, and he's literally showing flat. It's completely flat. You're seeing the entire peninsula on the other side of the lake, all lit up with all the buildings, where it should be like 300 feet of curve, and it's so funny. I can't wait to do a video on this. It's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, you can't basically change reality. So we've said it before, every photograph is a flat Earth photograph. So undoubtedly there's going to be some flat Earth evidence in Soundly's images, whether he wants it there or not, because the Earth isn't a sphere.
Coming in, I've checked the tide actually a couple times there, and he's positioned himself when the tide's coming in, and he's set his camera up, and he's taking images of this New Orleans building, the Marriott Hotel, and he says, watch in some later shots, you'll see that the Marriott Hotel you don't see quite as much of it, and you don't see quite as much of it more, and you can actually see that as the tide's coming in, it's obviously rising up, so it's drowning out the Marriott Hotel in the background. And he's saying, see, now you can only see the very, very tips of it. And I'm thinking, oh my, are you actually going to go down this route and tell us that this is the curve of the Earth? Because it's just the tide coming in, mate. And he's literally saying, look, this is the curvature of the Earth. And it's not. It's the tide coming in, and it's just pathetic. Oh, it's so
we'll obviously see a video from you in that regard. But while we've got you, Chris, because I know you're going to toddle off soon, it's pretty late there. Can you go over again the irritation we have collectively with Metabunk and McWest's curve calculator, and why it is erroneous in regards to gravity and the tilt of the camera?
Yeah, exactly. I find it annoying because in standard surveying, when you set up a transit, the transit is level. You have to be meticulous to get a straight line, and transit it, level on both X and Y axis and keep it level. And that's very important. And on that diagram on that website, isn't actually what's being represented. So as what they're doing is when you increase the altitude of the observer, they're pointing the camera down at a horizon that would technically be below your feet, by miles. And there's no surveyor that I'm aware of, or would I hire if they did it. But if you actually did that in surveying, you couldn't survey anything. You'd end up corkscrewing down into the ground around like a tornado trying to shoot down all the time. It makes absolutely no sense. You know, when you level something and you're surveying something and rotating, even if, you know, if it was the fictitious ball were real, you'd still have to maintain a 90-degree line of sight on the fictitious ball. So as you went around the ball, you would end up being looking further up and up and up and out, you know, up towards, you know, space away from your target, right? So that's why I find it very annoying.
So just to answer Ron in chat, because he's just said that tides are hiding half of the hotel, laughing my ass off, Ranty is an imbecile. No, what you don't understand, Ron, is that when he takes his first images, he's actually seeing all of the building. And as the tide comes in, it rises up and it blocks out half of the building in the background. I'm sorry, but I have to explain it so simply because this guy clearly is deluded. He doesn't understand.
So the
He's
other thing I
showing
wanted,
all of the building originally.
sorry, Ranty. I was just going to say to Chris, the other thing that we get, or I've read in the comments literally in the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 hours, is from people saying, well, the horizon does drop, so it's perfectly acceptable to angle the camera down because the horizon doesn't rise to eye level. This has been debunked and you all know it. So can you go through why that's, again, total nonsense in regards to how the horizon actually works?
Yeah, it is. That's nonsense. You know, my father was a pilot, and I, you know, I had the controls in my hand when I was a kid too, right? And you know, small aircraft, and anyone that's a pilot, I'm sure, would tell you that the horizon, the real horizon, is actually above on your altimeter. It's actually above, you know, where it shows the ground, right? So you actually have to point the nose of an aircraft at the true horizon, which is above the ground. So what's happening is perspective causes the horizon line to appear to drop from the real horizon. That's because the resolution limits of, you know, optics and perspective and your eyes and everything. It's just that's the way it works in reality. There's nothing curving away from you. Right? The real horizon is still there. You just can't see it, and that's the truth.
So there's a term you gave for it. Was it the not fake horizon, but some artificial? It wasn't the word either. I forget the word you used.
Yeah. Well, they call it, you know, the virtual horizon, like in your altimeter, right? And there's an offset there. I can't remember the precise number. I'd have to look it up. But it's like 0.3 degrees or whatever. It's a standard. You know, you got to keep the nose pointed at that real horizon, the true horizon, or you end up flying into the ground. It's very important. If you didn't, you'd crash.
So in essence,
if you flew if you flew towards the horizon that you see with an aircraft at the ground, right, you would end up crashing into the ground because that's not the real horizon. That might make more sense to people. You have to point it up towards the real horizon.
So when people say the horizon does drop away,
yeah.
what they're actually saying is the virtual horizon, which is by virtue of perspective, seems to have dropped. But in reality, the real horizon is exactly where you would expect it at eye level. But we have this virtual horizon, which is what people cite when they show people on the top of a mountain.
Correct.
I would also point out that when you go above the clouds, you're unable to determine what is the horizon because the cloud cover stops you from seeing the hard horizon. And you have to make an educated guess as to what you think the horizon would be in a band of white, fluffy clouds. That you're unable to ascertain where the actual horizon is in any event. So it's literally done as a guess, not done as an accurate thing. If you use some measuring device to determine the angle, you have to point that at something. And that's something that you're pointing at. Once you go above the clouds, you cannot determine because you don't know where the horizon is because obviously the clouds are above it. You can't see the hard horizon anymore.
This might be a good way to illustrate it so people can visualize it. I'm sharing a picture there. Can you see it?
Yeah, we see.
All right, so this is just a photograph from, you know, a very high altitude, like extremely high. I think it was either a weather balloon or something like that. And you see this very straight line of the moon as it sets. It's a setting moon. So, you know, on an aircraft where the horizon would appear, you would think, oh, well, this is where the horizon is down here. But in reality, the horizon is here. And in this case, it's cutting that moon off on a precise, very straight line. So if you're flying, you have to fly towards that point to maintain your level flight. That's how it works, that's why it appears to be so flat and square, flat, level, straight. There's your flat plane right there.
And we've got a few commenters saying eye level, ha ha ha. But would you correctly assess that and describe that as eye level?
That would be eye level, yeah. That's where your true level line would be. Center of frame, eye level is right there.
So regardless of the virtual horizon,
right,
we have an eye level horizon.
Correct. Yeah. This down here is false. Like it's an illusion due to perspective. There's a drop-off gradient where the light basically converges at a point, and that's your vanishing point. The vanishing point causes this differential. That's perspective. That's all it is.
Yeah. So in the metabunk calculations, when they are angling the camera down towards the curve of a so-called sphere Earth, it is total nonsense, complete and utter rubbish.
What they're telling you is they've angled it down from this point down to this point, and they're calling that, I don't know what their labeling, precise labeling is, whether they're calling that the curve or drop or something, but that they're just pointing out that this is where the virtual horizon would be. Right? They're pointing the camera down, which is not how you would survey anything. If you're going to survey something, you put the target, you level your survey and transit to the center point, like here, for example, and then you measure from the surface up to that point. And that gives you your elevation of whatever it is you're measuring down here relative to where you are. You always do it that way. You compare the two numbers, and that's your elevation. Subtract one from the other, and that's it.
And to put it into terms that people who aren't surveying things can understand, when Anthony put his camera on the hill, he leveled it. He didn't angle it down, he put it level. That's why he had a clean sweep from left to right, or very nearly a perfect, level, flat representation of the horizon, because his camera was level. Were it to be pointing down, he would have had a great big slope on either side as it went up and down as he panned the camera. That was not what happened, because the camera was level.
Yeah, I think you get it pretty close. I mean, I wouldn't say perfect level, but you get it pretty close. He did his best. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to respond to this comment in chat? It says, according to Monk, lighthouse focal height of 213 feet means it is about 150 feet above sea level, and the light is just aimed upwards. Laughing my ass off. I think what he's referring to with the first part, the focal height of 213 feet means it is about 150 feet above the sea level. I'm not sure. I think perhaps Ron's got this wrong. I'm not sure whether he's quoting you accurately or whether he's just confused. But the focal height is the height of the bulb above the water.
Well, it actually sounds like a conversation that must be going on amongst people behind the scenes. That absolutely, to be honest with you, based on recent conversations in that regard that didn't take place in public as well, when we were discussing what a Fresnel lens actually is in a lighthouse, and actually discussing that topic as to how the lighthouse was designed, where the foundation is at 84 feet of elevation and the lighthouse is physically 75 feet tall. And you add the two together and you end up with a total elevation above sea level at 159 feet, I believe, if you do the math. And then from there, that's the actual height up to the top of the lighthouse is 159 feet.
All right, so it appears that what he's implying is that 213 feet means it is about 150 feet above sea level. I don't see why that's an issue. That appears to be correct. I don't know why he's making that an issue.
The focal point of the light is where the light points. So
yeah, the focal point is, but the focal height.
It's the same thing. The light is focused to a height that's specific above sea level, which is out at sea. Right? It points upward, out, however many miles it has a power of whatever lumens, and it points out to sea, say 6 miles or however far that light will shine. And where that point converges is 213 feet above the sea at that point, X amount of miles offshore. Who knows? Like, but that's what they mean by the focal height.
He was denying that 213 feet is the elevation of the light source above sea level.
No, it's not. The light source, like the light bulb in the lighthouse itself, the actual roof of the lighthouse, is 159 feet above sea level. The foundation starts at 84 feet above the sea, which is its elevation, and then you add the height of the building to its elevation to calculate.
All right, so he's disagreeing on the number. He's saying 213 feet is the actual number.
No, the actual physical lighthouse is 159 feet.
Do you want to share screens and let's do the maths on it based on what we're talking about? Because
no, that's getting into semantics over the definition of what a focal point is, not the actual physical building itself.
No, it's the number. He's on about the number.
I don't care what the number is because you're talking about a focal point versus the actual physical building itself. The physical building itself, to the roof of the building, the very top of the building, is 159 feet above sea level. I don't care where the light shines.
No, so what he's saying is that he's saying 213 feet is the elevation of the light source above sea level. So what he's saying is 213 feet.
He's saying light source, not focal height. That's just being semantical about definitions, wanting to argue over the definition of a term. It has nothing to do with the physical structure of the lighthouse.
Well, I'm not sure. It seems like he's saying that he's saying 213 and you're saying 180. That's what it seems like the debate is.
No, I'm not saying 180. I'm saying the foundation of the lighthouse is 84 feet off the shore, like off sea level, plus a 75-foot lighthouse. Or 75-foot lighthouse, actually. So it's 159 feet to the top.
Okay, it's difficult to do this over text because obviously there's a delay and you don't get the expression when he's trying to emphasize.
Well, I'm just trying to be clear. Focal height is not focal source or the source of the light. Focal height is where the light is focused to offshore above sea level. The light points up. Some of them point down. Like if you have a lighthouse that has a focal height, I might have a lighthouse 200 feet high, and its focal height might be 65 feet because there's rocks off the coast that they want to illuminate and warn boats not to hit, etc. I mean, they point them where they want to point them relative to the local conditions.
So we just figured out why they wanted to take us to the Lighthouse Authority. Hello, Arev. Is that really you?
Hey, how you doing?
Good to have you. So yeah, so that's why they wanted to take us to the Lighthouse Authority then, because they wanted to talk about the focal height because it's higher. Basically, they wanted to deceive us yet again.
Well, probably. I don't know why they want to take you to the
Lighthouse Authority quoted the focal height of the lighthouse, which is higher. So it made the maths easier. Made it seem like they could bring...
Well, if you ever do happen to go to the Lighthouse Authority, I would ask them how high is the roof from the very top of the building off of sea level.
So you're talking... So you're talking about the source of light, and maybe they shine it on a mirror from which they focus the light out to ships. Is that what you're talking about? And that's the height that you're talking about, the height of, say, the mirror that's focusing the light? For the
I'm not talking about the mirror. I'm talking about the point at which the light focuses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Where the beams converge at a point offshore.
Just for one more, just so it's on this stream once more, Chris, what is the actual height of the lighthouse? Forget the light, it projects, just the lighthouse.
The top of the lighthouse, the roof of the lighthouse is 159 feet above sea level. The foundation sits at 84 feet on the ground, and the actual structure of the lighthouse is 75 feet tall. And you add the two together, it's 159 feet. Period.
Thank you. Nice to get some clarity.
And with that, I do have to run. I'm going to fall asleep here at the wheel. So,
okay. It's been a pleasure as always.
But yeah, you guys have a good day, and hopefully that brought a little bit of clarity to that discussion. I'm off to work on some very interesting things, and I'll get back to you.
Thanks, Chris.
Have a good day, sir.
Yep. Take care.
Bye for now.
See you later, Chris.
Later.
So, if you are new to this channel or you wanted to subscribe, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to join the debate, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click on the link in the info box below this video. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a link in the info box also, but there is a super chat that runs alongside the show while it is live. If you do join the panel, please don't swear, and as Arev did when you join, please say a very quick hello so we know that you are a real person here to talk. If you've not subscribed already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Seemed like a right gap, so rather than doing it at the half an hour mark, I thought I'd do it now while there was a nice little break.
To be honest, I got confused then when he was talking. It's difficult when it's done in text because it's difficult to know the point that the texter is actually making, but I thought that the focal point was the height above water of the bulb, not the point where it aims at.
Me too.
Well, he's just gone through this. I mean, he's got the actual height of the foundation and the height of the building, which is what we're looking at in the picture. So to be honest, I think the focal height of the light is irrelevant. You know, we're looking at the building, and
I do agree. The
bulb isn't on the top of the building. It's not projecting its light out from the tippy top of the lighthouse, but that's what we see in the image. So who cares what the focal length is, focal height is? All we're interested in is the height of the lighthouse.
Right, I have to go soon as well. I have to go in 10 minutes. I'm actually sharing if you just want to have a quick scan through. This is from Soundly's video that he uploaded. Okay. And this is the hotel that we're talking about, the Marriott.
Are they street lights on show there?
Yeah, there's all the buildings. Can you see the other building? This is 27.3 miles away, this building. And it should be beyond 400 feet of curvature, right?
How could Soundly not notice this?
Right, look at this. This is the tide coming in, right? So this is the tide coming in, and can you see the effect it's having? It's literally taken half of the building away, right?
Yeah, that's probably because he's got his camera really low to the ground.
He has it at 6 feet. And here's another one a bit later on. He's not moved his camera on these three. They've stayed in the same position. So he took this image in the same place, same focal height, everything. Then as the tide comes in, this is what happens. It drowns out half of the building. And then a little bit further on, you can see that it's only the tippy toppy of it you can see here. But originally, when the tide was much lower, you can see all the buildings over there across the lake. And this is literally, and what he will do now is he'll use this image here, and he'll be portraying this image and saying, where's the rest of the building? This is the curvature of the earth. When in effect, he has seen this, but this is just an effect of the tide coming in. 1, 2, 3.
So you're saying that the waves have height that might, be blocking some of the view. And even with the lighthouse, depending on which number you use, 75 feet, 159 feet, you're going to get, weird calculations for this refraction or whatever. So it's kind of like, be nice if these people would show their work and say, what numbers they're using for this stuff.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that this is his work, 3 images, I think it was a couple of hours apart. The tide was coming in, and this is the effect that the tide actually has. So what's in the foreground as the tide comes up drowns out what's in the background. So when he's produced images before and he said, where's the bottom of the Marriott Hotel? It's simply that he's done it when the tide's been coming in. Because this is the effect that you can get when it's a low tide. And this is 27 miles away. 27, and I'll show you the curvature calcs on that as well, on the Metabunk. 27.3, viewer height 6 feet, because that's where he was. Should be hidden 393. Now, he made it quite clear that the temperature of the air and the temperature of the water was the same. So there should be no problems with refracted. So that shouldn't take any precedence whatsoever. So we have
how
to
tall is the Marriott?
believe what it said.
Do you know how tall it is? The building.
390. I don't know exactly how far, but I'm sure it's not at the height of Blackpool Tower. It's big, but
so geometrically, it's almost 500 feet around the curve. So if we're seeing it, we are we're actually looking at mirages here. We're looking at things that aren't really there, correct?
Yeah.
Depending on the height, it might be. I mean, based on that maths alone, I can tell you straight away that, like with the Isle of Man, if some of it is being miraged up, then all of it must be a mirage. So I can tell you straight away that basically what we're seeing in the image in the left is a holographic projection of something that is not there, geometrically impossible to be there, is not there, cannot see it, don't have line of sight.
Well, what's interesting on that one, though, is that Soundly hasn't realised he's seeing street level, and he's not realised that that's flat as a pancake, yet claiming it as a ball earth proof.
It would be interesting to note what these buildings are. But clearly, I mean, I'm, you know, I'd be guessing to say what height he's actually seen down to, but probably at least 70 or 60 feet, perhaps. You know, these buildings are probably, these smaller ones must be about 60, 70 feet high, you'd think. And if this is the effect that tide has, you know, as you can see, as the tide's coming in, you've got 3 different values here as to how much of the building is hidden. And he's not moved his camera. The camera's been in the same position. So
the question becomes, do you think this is a variable curvature to Earth's surface or a variation to the atmospheric refraction based on the tide, which is the thing actually varying?
Yes, exactly. Right, so I'm going to stop sharing that now.
What area is this Marriott Hotel in?
It's, do you want the address?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, yeah.
Just tell me the area, I'll find it.
It's like 555 something street.
It's in Swampsville, I mean Louisiana or wherever it is.
Yeah, New Orleans.
Marriott, the Hilton New Orleans River Service. New Orleans Marriott, there we go.
It's, where is it now? 555 something street.
So it's just south of Pontchartrain. Right, okay. Because we could probably find out what those buildings are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have a height of the Marriott.
Get the rumpus to calculate it using pixels and stuff.
Yeah, right. Because that proved really successful, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was invited to GeoStreamer's chat last night for a hangout due tonight, where Rumpus has got a 45-minute presentation on refraction. Gee, I couldn't think of anything more interesting.
It's 555 Canal Street.
Yeah, I have found it. I'm just looking for the.
I have a Wikipedia about it, actually.
Ron Burgundy's just stuck it in the chat. New Orleans Marriott, located at 555, is at Canal Street in the Central Business District of New Orleans, Louisiana. It is a
it's 137 meters.
It's got the feet. It's a 42-story building, 449 feet.
149 feet. Well, 400 feet of that should be taken up.
So we are looking at a holographic projection of the hotel in the sphere world of nonsense.
But isn't this where we're seeing curvature, according to Soundly?
Depends on the tide.
It does depend on the tide, doesn't it?
It's really industrial around that area. I'm looking on Google Earth now at the 3D buildings because that part of Google Earth is 3D. And it looks like there's a huge water treatment plant all around that area.
Ron just doesn't get it, does he? He says, Sorrenti, the tides are blocking half of the 140-meter building. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is what happened. He put the images out, the tide came in, and it drowned out the building in the background. What else are you supposed to deduce from that?
That's why, you know, it's important to correctly understand perspective, and that, you know, for a 6-foot height, half of your vanishing point horizon below your eye line would be gone very quickly. And that's why Samuel Rowbotham said that, you know, stuff zeroes out to the 1 minute of 1 degree vanishing point very quickly. You know, and so stuff below your eye line would narrow out very quickly because you don't have a lot of room to make a big arc for objects.
I don't think Ron gets it. He's saying that 70-meter tides, according to Ranty. What is this? He's clearly trolling now. He has no idea what he's absolutely trolling. It can't be that simple. He can't possibly be that simple.
And that's why it would be nice if people would read his work, you know.
Damn. They don't like people challenge. That's what it is. You challenge Soundly, it's like challenging their
God.
ball god, yeah.
Yeah, they'll declare jihad in Tim's word.
Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? So they go and they make ridiculous claims of 70-meter tides and tsunamis. Now apparently it's a tsunami now.
Well, Samuel Robotham, as far as I can see, is the only one who goes over perspective in a way that makes sense. And then from there, you can glean some of the other conclusions. If stuff, can't be seen past 1 minute of one arc of vision as it narrows in the distance, well, below your eye line, you only have 6 feet of height. So below your eye line, for the bottom half of your visual vanishing point, stuff would narrow out very quickly because you only have 6 feet of ground to work with. It makes sense.
Yeah, there's a very good demonstration of that done by Nick of Phuket Word. So he has a load of chopsticks on a table, and he has a camera that's a couple of inches off the table. And he shows you that by virtue of perspective, and you were trying to detail this yesterday with your, no offense, but your crude diagram. What you've got very rising crude up below you to eye level isn't very much, but from the sky you've got infinite amounts of stuff coming down to your vanishing point. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
And so let me see if I could try a better drawing here. Screen share. And kind of show what's really happening with perspective. Because in a way, people do math simplification with these diagrams, but they're too simple because they don't go over everything that's quite happening. So you're on the ground, kind of like what y'all did yesterday, just a bit more accurate. And then this is just how objects appear in the distance. So your vanishing point up top in the distance, this is at eye line. And up top, you have all this view. But ground-wise, you only have this much view. See? So it's not very, very much of a range, bottom up. So, stuff would narrow out very quickly, and actually it'd be even more accurate is distance-wise. So you're seeing all the way into the distance. Sorry, my drawings kind of stink, but go like that in the distance, but 6 feet of vanishing point would be like right here. And so you're missing like this whole vision. So that's really with the vanishing point with a better drawing that kind of represents everything that's going on. Because a lot of times, people want to represent it as this perfect triangle, but top and bottom, you got different things going on. So that's the basic dynamic. But if you're up in the air, it would be a bit more equal. It would be expected to be more equal based off of the way things narrow down to that vanishing point of 1 minute and 1 second that Samuel Robotham was talking about. And so your vanishing point would be equal top to bottom. And you'd see stuff disappear uniformly in the distance perfectly. So, and in a way, if this is true, it works out nicely because, if stuff disappears down to that vanishing point equally, that, it's reached its true vanishing point. But if it disappears top first or bottom first, it's a false horizon and you can see further, but it's your height that's limiting, what you can see. So it's pretty interesting. But yeah, read Samuel Robotham's work. This whole movement things about people using their discernment and not letting other people kind of think for them, not your schools or whatever. Just look at the work for yourself and come to your own conclusions. Hopefully my drawing was a little better this time.
Yeah, that was good. It was clear enough yesterday, to be honest. It's just one of those that it's explaining it in verbalizing it as well as having an illustration and getting it through to people as you draw it. That's nice to do with an audience, even though it's it's not a fantastic drawing, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The point is clear.
It's kind of hard to believe so many years of debate or been happening over kind of this principle here, but so important to get truth out to the people.
Well, yeah, Sandy's been fortunate. He's helped us out with this video that he put out last night because it shows what happens with perspective.
I don't understand why he would not realize that the streetlights are on his photos and still think that the Earth's curved. I can only assume he's either cherry picking or he's just turning a blind eye to it because he realizes it's there, but he don't point that out. Like a bit like who was it now? Miles Davis did when he did his second video and he was showing the land peeping up and disappearing and peeping up and disappearing. And on the approach to the land he was looking at, there was a load of like coastal houses, about 6 or 8 houses, and they're basically supposed to be behind the curvature of the Earth, and they're clearly visible in his photo, in his video. And I'm like, did you not think to look at that? I mean, they're clearly quite far away. Did you not think to consider the effects of curvature on these things? Come on. So he's either ignored it or he's turned a blind eye to it. Sorry, he's either ignored it or he's looked at it and not even considered it as being at risk of curvature because it was not it was not behind the curve of the Earth, right? It's only where he sees obstruction that he thinks curvature. If he doesn't see obstruction, he doesn't think, oh, that's far away, it might be subject to curvature. He sees it because it's there, therefore it's not behind the curve. That's the way he thinks.
And to put this in perspective, that Marriott building is it's not far off, the same distance away to what we saw from Hoylake to Blackpool. You know, we looked at Blackpool Tower.
About 30 miles, right?
Yeah, it's 27.3, and then there was 29.6 or something to Blackpool Tower. So it's not that far removed from the same distances.
Yeah, I notice he's diversifying now. He can't rely on his Pontchartrain stuff anymore because I mean it's only 16 miles, so he's having to move around now and see what else he can do. But I don't understand why he can look 30 miles and see the streetlights almost.
But the funny thing is, you know, when we showed like the big one and what have you, which was actually nearer, so it was about the same distance. The big one was about the same distance away, and they refuted that and said that no, that can't be possible. It's impossible. Blah blah. No, I mean, we had such grief over those images.
Yeah, and the mirror ball.
Yeah, no, well, not the mirror ball, but even just the big one, because the big one was about the same distance, 27 miles away. And we had so much grief that we could see that. And effectively, what Soundly is providing is a very, very similar level of image.
Well, maybe you should put Soundly's pictures on and put your pictures right next to it. And given that the distances are so similar, compare and contrast, and show them that they're almost identical with what's being shown.
Yeah, I should. I think I'll include that in the video that I'll do. Yeah, it's. I'm glad that he did it. To be fair, I'm glad he released it without editing anything, because at least we got to see all the images one after the other. So that was nice of him to do that, because I have a feeling that he wouldn't have showed the Marriott building down to its base.
If he'd have realised, he couldn't. He obviously couldn't have realised it, could he? Because if he would have realised, there's no way he'd have released that.
No, he would have released the furthest one. You know, where you're just seeing the tips of it at the top, and that's effectively what he's been doing this whole time. He's been cherry picking.
He has been. Yeah, he's found some swamp, and he's at 16 miles, shown curvature that reflects like the Earth to be the size of Pluto, and then told everybody, and people have just lapped it up. I mean, oh, by the way, I saw Miles Davis last night. Spurs chemo was meant to be going on with Sean, and when we finished our Skype call, I flicked over to Sean and to see if Spurs was in, and he'd either been in or he was yet to come in, but I was going to bed, and I saw Miles Davis chatting away in the side chat. So he's literally wriggling away because he knows that he's got footage that we want, and he's got it, and it doesn't help his case. It goes against his case, and he's literally avoiding us. So Miles Davis and Al Kay, we're still going to keep asking for it because we want to see it.
Is that Arav? You...
Oh, sorry, wrong button. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I just want to play this video out just to back up your point that you were making. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
So this is, it's not the video I wanted with the chopsticks, but it kind of, you have to bear in mind that obviously in his frame of camera, he hasn't got all of the sky above him, but it still illustrates your point. It's only a couple of minutes long.
Here is a good example of how our field of view, the sky and the surface, is divided into two. But our field of view, although it goes down to here, we always have the surface in the way. I mean, really, this is our perspective on the Earth. If we didn't have the surface in the way, we would see beneath the surface. But we have a flat surface, and of course the sky is very high, and there's a lot of that to see. But here, this is as far as we can see.
To be honest, that's probably enough. You get the general idea.
I did one really similar with straws. black and white straws on the tabletop, and as you change your angle, you just see more. Not because of the curvature of the Earth or the curvature of the table, just because you're reducing your angle of observation from horizontal to a more angular observation point. And for that reason, you see it.
Yeah, and ballers say that, of course you'd see more land on a ball, yeah, but the horizon would dip and you'd see a hump of land below you. Sure, you might see some more land, but you'd have to look down at an angle to see the Earth. The fact that it rises up at eye level means that there's more flat land beyond, and you have to keep going. And so we just need some calculations based off maybe a flat Earth model, perhaps, of how high you need to be to see, to the ends of the Earth. I did some math using Sam Robotham's assertions that you can see an object up to 3,000 times its size, based off of the reports of Antarctica being 60,000 miles in circumference. That means that the diameter of the Earth, at least up to that, circular point, if there's not more land beyond, means that, the Earth is at least 20,000 miles in diameter. And so to see from one end of the Earth to the other, you'd have to be, I guess, at the Antarctic ring or whatever the edge is, with probably the dome enclosure, whatever is going to be as far as you can go. You'd have to be up in the air like what, 10 to 15,000 miles or something like that in the air. But if the dome is up there, 70 miles plus, then you're not going to get that high. It's just not going to happen. I'm going to see if I can find the video they have of that rocket hitting the dome. Y'all saw that video? Rocket.
Yeah, 73-mile one.
I think it hit the dome about 70 miles out. Rocket.
Yeah, it didn't hit any dome. That's not right. That's it's not a misrepresentation, but it's a misinterpretation of what actually did happen. That rocket was spinning really, really fast on its own axis point as it was going up. And as it was spinning and spinning and spinning, it got that fast you couldn't actually see anything. But within the rocket, it had a built-in a de-spin system called
yo-yo
de-spin.
Yo-yo.
Yeah, and it had an explosion.
I have to go now, so sorry.
Thanks, Auntie.
To jump out. Listen, I've sent you that image in Skype, Anthony and Nathan. So
thank you very much.
Want to throw it up, you can use it anytime. Right, peace, and I'll see you later.
See you later.
See you later. So all the yo-yo de-spin mechanism did was it reduced and stopped or basically minimized the spin so that the camera was able to be seen. And if you watch and listen carefully, the noise that people think is hitting the dome is actually the deployment of the yo-yo de-spin mechanism that stops it from spinning. And that's all that is. I'm not sure where that hitting the dome bit came from, but it's not what happened. It's wrong to describe it as hitting the dome.
Because it looked like it decelerated pretty quickly and didn't elevate anymore. It looked like its progression was completely stopped.
That's right.
Is that possible even with the yo-yo de-spinner? Wouldn't it kind of continue elevating a little bit, or at least do what you see those rockets do? It would curve out on its path and start decelerating. It looks like it's not progressing any further. It just looks like it's halted.
Sure. You can see it if you 73-mile rocket. I'll see if I can find the video.
I think I have it right here. Let me
just watch the point when it gets up towards the point where it hits the dome, and then just watch and listen, and you can see the actual deployment of the yo-yo de-spin system. So as much as I want to believe and agree with you, it's not. It didn't hit any what do you call it? Any dome.
I'll just go fast forward a little bit. Get it already. So there it is. Going up. And then all of a sudden it's not making any progression. It's just kind of plunked. Looks like it hit something.
It does look like it hit something, yeah. But once you know once you see what the yo-yo de-spin system was that was on that, it makes perfect sense. And it's like, yeah, that's not even the original video, that is it?
Well, that's just GeoShifter's video, and I think he asserts in it that it's hitting the dome.
Yeah. If you look at the original one, you get a better quality sound. And if you line the sound up with what you see at the time it makes the sound, I mean, it makes a noise that sounds like one of the doors opening in Doom. If you remember,
like
the
a
computer
watery
game
sound,
Doom.
isn't it? Wop, 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 wop.
Yeah, it's like dooged. It's clearly a non-explosive noise. It's mechanical noise. It's clearly a non.
Hello, Alan B. How you doing?
Hey.
This is going to be interesting. Do you remember what I told you right at the beginning of the call, Nate?
Snipers.
Vaguely.
Don't repeat my words, but do you remember what I said?
Can't, no. Sorry.
Right, okay, it don't matter then. Yeah, this is where we could do with what's his face? Our friend from what's his name now? Renee. Could do with him coming in with this satellite stuff. Oh, tell you what we'll do. We'll just tell everybody what happened yesterday with regards to Magic making his nonsense website. What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead.
So yesterday, I had a hangout with it was impromptu with what's his face, M. Scott Veach. Oh, hang on a sec. Yeah, she's calmed down. And essentially, it was about whether or not what were we talking about originally? It was there were two things, but principally the key point was to do with whether the diagram on MetaBunk's website, the revamped version of it, whether or not it was any good. And I was getting I was getting hassle from the ballers because I was saying that it doesn't do what they say, what he tells us it does, because the drop value was static at all times. So whatever value you put in, just call it 50 miles. It doesn't matter whether you put in a foot, 10 feet, or 100 feet. The drop value is always static. Now, that didn't match with what he had on the diagram. The diagram yesterday, it showed that the drop was relative to the eye level of the observer, because it went across to the eye level of the observer. So obviously, as the eye level of the observer rose, then the drop value should have rose with it. Now, that wasn't what it was showing yesterday, and that was the point that I was making, because it wasn't right. That was factually wrong.
And so is this.
The remedy.
So is this incorrect, and I want to get this straight in. So as you did what you did a second ago, raise in elevation, the camera angles down. Now, unless anybody's going to argue with me that you see the Earth falling away from you as you raise up in an aeroplane, then this is complete nonsense. No, this is not what happens in reality. The horizon does not drop away from you as you raise. Now, we've gone through this at the beginning of the show. If you want to listen again to the beginning of the show, Chris goes through this in more detail. But we have a virtual horizon, which is caused by perspective. We also have a real horizon, which absolutely rises with you to eye level. You do not angle your camera down. Now, mixed response to this is, you can angle your camera anywhere you like. Well, yes, but if you angle it below eye level, you are pointing it down at the ground, not at the horizon, which is what he has it marked as, the horizon. Well, as anybody knows who's been on an aeroplane, the horizon rises with you, and this is absolutely necessary on an attitude meter to maintain level flight. So I'm not going to hear any nonsense about virtual horizons that are caused by perspective, because that is not the world we live in, and it doesn't account for the fact that this is a varying degree of change. As you raise, the camera alters.
Well, also, based off of the diagram that you're showing, the drop is based off of the sphere. So it would be that right by that height circle at your height, that it's the drop based off of your feet down. That's why it's not changing. So it looks like that that calculator, it's only calculating from your feet down to the drop of the foot level, I guess you could say, of the object you're viewing in the distance. That's why it's not changing, because that drop is staying the same. And so that's why they have the drop line going down from surface level down to the object, and that's not going to change no matter how you move that calculator. And that's why they're not changing.
But it's incorrect.
So you're thinking the drop is calculated based off of from head, probably from the head of the observer down to the feet of the object.
No, not at all. It varies. No, that's not right. That's not what it's showing. No. What it's showing is the camera varies as you raise in altitude to maintain that point on the horizon so that the drop behind it remains fixed and constant. That's what we show in the calculations. That's what the camera has to do. That angle is increasing. as you increase in altitude. So it's not just angling down to your feet, it's angling down to the virtual horizon, if they want to call it that. But that's not even technically true either, because that remains constant. It's just a forced perspective.
But notice how the drop isn't varying. The drop
I understand that, but that's
static,
nonsense.
Despite
as
all
you
these
raise
changes.
in altitude,
so the drop has increases. To be from the foot of the observer to the foot of the object in the distance. That's why it's not changing.
Right, and that was the point.
What that would mean, though, Arav, hold on. What that would mean, though, is that as Anthony goes up and down on his little hill, it would mean that he has to lower his camera more the higher he goes. And by the same definition, if you took a camera to the top of the Empire State Building, you would still level it. You know, you would still put it level if you were going to rotate your camera. You wouldn't angle it down more to incorporate the horizon. It's complete nonsense. The horizon does rise with you as you increase in altitude. You do not have to angle your camera down more severely as you raise. But that's what it depicts. That's not reality. That's not what we observe. That's not what planes need in order to maintain level flight. It's complete nonsense. You do not angle the camera down. That's the end of it. It's complete rubbish. It's wrong. It's incorrect. It's false. It's misleading. It's just not accurate. That's not what we have in the real world. The horizon does rise with you. That's it.
And it's always been my assertion that I have always looked up to the horizon. Up. I have never, ever looked down. Now, I understand that the argument is like it's 0.01 of a degree. You would never be able to measure this. Well, you can tell by your own head, by your own, the way you're seeing, the way you're holding yourself, the way you're looking across the horizon towards the point that you can no longer see. You can tell whether you're looking up or down. Oh, but it's only like 0.5 of a degree. Well,
you don't even have to gauge it. You level your camera. That's the end of it. You level your camera at the beginning. If you're going to pan left or right and you don't level your camera, it becomes incredibly obvious that you haven't leveled your camera.
So the argument about 0.5 of a degree is that you would never be able to determine it because it's such a microscopically small thing. However, when you look out of a plane, then that value is not 0.5 anymore. That value becomes prominent. And when we were playing around with CAD last night, we were working out what the angles would be based on the geometric shape of the Earth. And essentially, all you've got to do is zoom out a little bit, get your elevation up to the height of a jumbo jet, which is about 30,000 feet, and you can see by their own model that there is a huge curve there. But watch what happens as you change your. Can you see that the angle? It changes the angle for me. But can you see that you have to start looking down because the horizon is dropping relative to the observer, and it does it immediately. It starts immediately, and it becomes really noticeable at very low altitudes.
This is because the curve's there from ground level on a sphere that is 24,900 miles in circumference, and Chris demonstrated this in the model on QED. The Earth is obviously observably flat. As he rotates the camera, as he gets to maybe 180 degrees off the 90, so he's completely to the left, sorry, he's 90 degrees off Morgord Lighthouse, completely to the left, what he's looking at is a dip, the curve of the Earth. We don't observe any curve, at any altitude. The reality is there's no curve, but what we should have is a curve from 35 feet, according to the mathematics and the model that Chris demonstrated. And it's simple geometry. All of the guys out there, no one's going to argue with the geometry of what he modelled. And the fact is, it should show curve from ground level, and it should get increasingly bigger and fall away from you as you increase, if you were on a sphere. This is not what we observe. So this is basically who's the fantasist and who's the realist. If you want to believe that the ground falls away from you as you rise, and believe that you have to angle your camera down, then you can believe that, but you are, in fact, a fantasist, because that is not what happens in reality. In reality, even if you're at the top of the Empire State Building, you still level your camera, you are still looking at a horizon that is risen with you. If you're up in an airliner, you still have a horizon line that is risen with you. It doesn't change, doesn't make any difference what the virtual horizon does. Anyway, tune back into the beginning, rewind, watch the re-up, listen to what Chris explained and depicted with the horizon line and the moon setting on that horizon line above the clouds. If you want to challenge that, feel free. Hello again, Alan B. You going to talk this time? No, clearly not.
Crazy.
Don't even bother giving him the time of day, mate. He isn't
I'd
worth
prefer he
acknowledging.
talked. Last time he had an objection to the Isle of Man, and like I say, people are critical of me or anything we're doing, they're welcome to express those criticisms. So yesterday, Alan B concisely criticised us for having done too many hours on the Isle of Man. And my reply was, oh well, Rowbotham has been talked about for a very, very, very long time, even though people out there in the globe world would consider his work to have been debunked. Not the case. However, that's what many globe believers think. But we're still talking about him.
Yeah,
Same
and people
goes
of
for the Isle of
discerning
Man.
scientific taste, can take the good stuff and leave the garbage. A lot of times they try to ruin your reputation and render you radioactive so that people don't, look at your scholarship. If we're real truth seekers, no matter how perfect or imperfect the person is, we should be able to take, what's true from what they did and leave the rest. It's very, in my opinion, very evil.
Let me just address this before before we go off on topic on a tangent. When we move backwards here, I want to try and get this to the height of a plane. But what it actually does every time you do it is it flicks you out of it so that you can't see the horizon dropping, which is convenient at best. But nonetheless, you get it to about 30,000 feet. Now, you can do the calculations, right, based on whatever. But at 30,000 feet, there's clouds in the way. And the problem with the clouds is that you can't actually see a hard horizon because the horizon diffuses out and becomes very soft and it blends into, you don't get this hard horizon, you get a very soft horizon and you have no way of knowing what is the horizon because you can't actually see it.
You don't get this hard horizon.
Hello, Alan. You're going to actually say something.
You have no way of knowing what is the horizon because you can't see it. You don't get this.
Freaking satellite.
No, he's just generally being an idiot. But anyway, when the clouds are there, you just can't tell where the horizon is. So that makes the ability to use like something like a theodolite or whatever these nonsense boys claim repeatedly becomes impossible because you can't discern where the hard horizon is anymore because the clouds diffuse light over distance and like refraction as per flat Earth, not refraction as per ball Earth, stops you from seeing a clear hard horizon. But you can see that you can literally, with even just below the height of a plane, that you can see on Google Earth that as you change your elevation, that horizon starts to drop. And
Sorry
what
to be
Nathan's
argumentative,
is,
but that's not always the case. So you're assuming that you always get cloud cover blocking your view of a hard horizon at altitude, but that's not the case. I mean, for me, that was one of the things that really resonated, or I thought back on after hearing Matt Powerland mention the words flat and earth together in the same sentence. But over land, if there isn't any cloud cover, obviously, it's really predominant. It's flat as a pancake, and you can see it. There's absolutely no way it's falling away from you.
But even at like 7,000 feet, which is not very high, not only do you see the horizon dropping before your eyes on Google Earth, you start to see that. I don't know whether you can see what I see at the minute, but that's beginning to show curvature already. But it flicks off straight away, which is hard. But there's curve there, and we're not even high.
So a horizon implies an uppermost boundary or an uppermost limit. So on the curved bottle Earth, the horizon is supposedly the highest point in the distance that you'd see, despite the fact that gravity, there's a contradiction even there because gravity is supposed to pull us straight down. We should be on the horizon. There shouldn't be any horizon visible in the distance unless we're looking off at a tangent that's skewed to gravity. So basically, that's kind of a contradiction there. But a horizon kind of implies that you're looking at the end. On a flat model, if there's, say, 20,000 or more distance, of diameter from one end to the other, and like if Samuel Rowbotham, what his assertion was correct, that, you see objects up to 3,000 times their distance or whatever, then, you'd have to take, I guess, 20,000 as the diameter and divide it by, I guess, 3,000 or whatever. I'm no math major, but that would be the height that you'd have to be at to see from one end of the Earth to the other. And if you do that, you get what, 6,000, feet you have to be in the air. But, if we can't get that high, you're not going to see it. And so basically you would just see objects up to 3,000 times their height before they disappear. That's it. And you would continue to see more land and more land and more land until you get high enough to see the ends of the Earth, under this model.
I'm going to do a very quick link. So we are coming up on approximately 1 hour left on this live stream. If you are new to the channel, or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a link in the info box, or there is a super chat that runs alongside these shows while they are live. If you would like to join the panel, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the discussion and express your views on the shape of the Earth. There are a couple of rules in the Hangout. Number one, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. Please share the show on social media, as this increases the live audience, of course, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you have not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. There is approximately 1 hour left on this live stream.
Anyway, back to the what do you call it? This nonsense. So he'd made his changes yesterday, and I'd spotted that they were done last night. So we did the really quick hangout last night, acknowledging that they were done. And he's Mick himself has actually commented in the comments from the 15-minute hangout from last night. In fact, I'll pull them up actually because it is worth reading them. Because essentially the guy, let's get it. It's this one, isn't it? I'm looking forward to when this. Right, where is it? 29 replies. Right. Sorry for the confusion with the incorrect diagram earlier. Somebody emailed me to note that it was correct. I'm sure that means was incorrect. Somebody emailed me to note that it was incorrect. And the incorrect diagram was only there for 1 day. Drop is somewhat informal notion. Glad you like the new interactive version. Well, drop's not informal.
Just before you go any further, so just for the audience's benefit, so in the space of 3 days, according to Mick West, we have had 3 incorrect diagrams. So the first is incorrect because it doesn't seem to obey the laws of gravity, the one that we have currently, that is. The one before was completely incorrect as it misrepresented the eye line, and the one before that was incorrect. So we've had a succession of incorrect diagrams from Mick West for all those people who trust Mick West and his diagrams.
So the bottom line is, like, there's been back and forth, but the bottom line is that I've said to him, why don't you come on and show us how it is that we've got it so badly wrong? Because it appears that the Earth appears to be flat and it doesn't conform with your thingies. So I've said to him, hey, Mick, why don't you come on to the debate sometime and tell us why the Isle of Man observation does not seem to match your curve calcs? Even with your non-negligible refraction, we can work around your Joe Rogan slots. I know that we're only small fry, but hey, if your calculator does what it says, there must be something wrong with the camera, right? Don't worry, the rumpus has calculated any building in the evidence now. He hasn't got it quite right, but he claims he can do it. With a bit of rumpus refraction and a bit of Paul's maths, and you to explain your refined model for refraction, surely we can work out why the Isle of Man footage appears to look so flat, but it's actually spherical, right? What do you say, Mick? You can show us where we're going wrong here. No one has been able to make the Isle of Man conform to the shape of a ball yet, so you're the man. He hasn't responded yet, because I guess he's gone to bed. Oh, actually, he's talking about drop. Refraction would make it appear curved upwards. Ooh, actually, refraction would make it appear curved very slightly upwards. The light bends towards the more dense medium, i.e. down towards the higher pressure air. So hang on, so if refraction would make it appear curved very slightly upwards, why does it appear to curve downwards when Soundly shows it? Are you discrediting Soundly's work there, Mick? Because refraction would make it appear to curve very slightly upwards. So anyway, I asked him why was it that he only ever shows the curve calculation bending down. We know that light bends up as well as down, and Soundly showed it. He showed it with his 8 lamps on 8 sticks experiment at the Little Texas Bayou. He showed that lights will bend up and down independently of each other, and that is refraction. But this calculator doesn't do that. So I was challenging him on all of the things that he says. And where is it? There we go. I said, whilst you're in the mood for changing all of the points that I cite against you, perhaps you could change the part where you say that refraction...
Hello, I've got a new guest. How you doing? Dazaconda. Good to see you. Say hello. Nope, clearly not. Has he managed to boot the guests in the meantime?
No, I don't think so.
Really good.
Hello.
You're still here, Arrow. We've still got you.
Hey.
So, but I asked him to change because he was making changes on the fly yesterday. He's made 3 changes, 2 of which are the ones that I normally cite against him because he uses wishy-washy words. But this is the bit I said he should change. In his calculator, I'm referring to this. I'm referring to this bit. Standard refraction is an approximation of the refraction expected under the standard atmospheric conditions. That's what he says. But what he should change it to is, in the standard atmospheric conditions, the 4 main variables that govern refraction bear absolutely no resemblance to my non-negligible calculations because my calculations are based on an arc, but the standard atmospheric conditions make no reference to an arc whatsoever. I've literally made this shit up. He hasn't changed it yet, but I'm hoping he's going to change this line because it's misleading. He says that it's based on these standard atmospheric conditions, and it's not. It's based on 76R, which is not based on the standard atmospheric conditions. So if you're watching, Michael, change it because you're misleading people into what you're saying it does. You are not basing it on that at all. You are basing it on your own science fiction. It's not based on the 4 variables that we see in the standard atmospheric conditions, which are these ones, and I read them all the time. I'm not going to read them now, but this is what you say your maths is based on, and it isn't, Mick. Your maths is based on 76R.
What's the right number for that? Like 16R or what?
76R.
Okay.
76. So basically, the radius of the Earth would be the value of like 1, or in this case, 6. So he's using 1 radius, but then a 6th added on top of it.
So basically basing it off of a fatter circle with a bigger radius.
Basing it on an arc. So it always bends down as per the definition of his maths. But he says
the arc of so basically he's using a circle, an arc off of a bigger circle to describe what's happening with the light. Okay.
Yeah. Now, relative to the light itself, that is a continuous arcing down all the time. Yeah, he admits in his thing that sometimes light bends up. So he acknowledges that light bends up, but he's giving this based on a radius. He's claiming that it's based on the standard atmospheric conditions, but it isn't. Not based on it at all, because if it was, it would talk about things like that are in here, and it isn't. It's basing it on a radius. And guess what happens if you do a search in this document for the word radius? Radius, no word, not a single, not once in this article does it talk about a radius. So it doesn't seem appropriate to describe your website as being based on this standard atmospheric conditions when you clearly use a radius, of which the word radius is not used once in the document in which you claim your maths is based on. Right? I see. This is the funny thing is, this is where Nick with Noel would argue in his favor, saying, well, blah, 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 derp, 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 gish gallop nonsense. But anybody that's got half a brain cell looks at this and thinks, well, if it doesn't mention the word radius in the atmospheric conditions that he cites, then it isn't doing what it says. Yet for some reason, Nick will still continue to argue and defend it. Nick was defending the fact, or Nick's comment yesterday was along the lines of, well, he's changed the website now for you. Shouldn't he be happy? Well, he's changed the website, but he's made it worse. So Nick didn't even realize that it was wrong. It takes a flat earther with no brain cells like me to spot that it didn't do what it said it did, because it was linked to the eye line of the horizon. It wasn't linked. It was linked at eye level. It wasn't linked to surface level, which has now been fixed. But Nick will defend anything because he's that kind. He is a fantasist.
Well, it'd be nice if we could go up to these mathematicians and ask them, why is it 76R? I mean, I don't know what assumptions go into this math. It's just, it's just very crazy. In the chat, it says it's based off of temperature, pressure, and change in H over time or something, or I'd have to look.
See, this is where Nick speaks so much nonsense, right? Nick claims that it's been explained to me like loads of times that the terrestrial refraction makes the apparent radius change. And I was like, no, Nick, Not a single baller has ever said terrestrial refraction makes the apparent radius change. Not once. That phrase has never come out of any baller's mouth. And I challenge Nick to produce evidence to show that that was true, because not one of them has said that at all. They've said numerous other things, but not that. They've said that it looks only flat because of non-standard looming projection refraction hyena. But never once has any one of them said anything like the apparent radius varies because of terrestrial refraction. You have literally plucked that one out of Mick's arse because you feel the urge to tickle his winnets with your tongue at this moment. Mick's in the chat, and he's tickling his winnets with his tongue.
Hey, part-time vegan. How you doing? Good to have you.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Good to have you.
And whilst we've got somebody new in, I'm going to go and get a quick coffee. Part-time vegan, it's over to you.
Okay. I'm just going to do a small demonstration on how I think that things disappear on a flat surface. It's kind of it kind of deals with what Arav was talking about earlier, but it's kind of a different, I guess, perspective. Let me share my screen real quick.
Some pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. How do you share your full screen? Oh, entire screen. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Definitely.
Okay, so do you guys see these two green stars right here?
I see him.
So as the green star increases its distance, the angle gets smaller. Do you guys recognize that?
I see.
Yes. So green star basically, as it increases in distance, essentially the angle gets smaller. Now the human eye has a resolution of, I believe, 0.02 degrees, right?
0.02.
I believe it's 0.02 degrees. We can fact check that later on. I guess it just depends on the person. But anyways, that's a general angular resolution of the human eye. So basically, if something has an angular size that's smaller than 0.02 degrees, then we can't see it, right?
Yeah, 200ths of a degree. So that'd be like what? Yeah.
So I drew these three balls because this is kind of how we can envision the ship. So instead of drawing the ship, I actually sectioned them out because the ship right now is about 7 feet away from the observer. The observer is right here, and the ship is right here. So if the bottom angle was 0.02 degrees, then theoretically speaking, if it just moved one more step over, it would have a smaller angle, and the smaller angle would be less than our angular resolution can detect. But the thing is, the angles above it, see this blue ball right here? It has a larger angle. So even though this green ball would disappear, the blue ball would still be visible because it still falls into the range of visibility. So basically, relative to the ocean, there's an angular, just an angle relative to the observer, and as you increase the distance, the bottom angle will disappear first relative to the ocean. So I think that's why things disappear bottom first on the flat surface. Make sense? Any objections? Any questions?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Checking the chat, seeing if anybody's got any questions. That's good.
Alrighty. Let me stop screen sharing then. Okie dokie.
So anything beyond that point would appear to disappear below an imaginary horizon, but it's just a trick of the eyes, basically. No curve, just optics.
Right. It's basically just angular resolution and perspective playing a role. Yeah. So it was so simple. I was like, no, it can't be that simple. There has to be something else. And I think you also have to take into account the surface of the water, because the dynamics near the surface of the ocean is going to have probably a super thin layer of water vapor. But the thing is, the further you look out, the more water vapor you're looking through, because obviously you're looking through a greater distance of water vapor. That makes sense?
Yeah, eventually the air gets too thick to see through.
Right,
Otherwise,
right,
we'd
right.
see much further, probably.
Yes, and I think that's going to happen near the surface of the ocean just because of dynamics of the just because of the dynamics of the water interacting with the ocean is going to create water vapor. So,
Hmm.
yeah. And that's I think that's why things I was gonna make a video on it just to be more uh I guess precise, but thought I'd just share that, see if you have any objections. But since there's none, I guess go ahead and make that video.
It's pretty simple, and it puts it together really nicely with the color coding, because then you can see, how the bottom of the object tends to zero out a vision, versus the top part, and it's pretty nice. Pretty good.
Awesome, awesome. Good to hear. I also want to, if you guys have any links, I would like to look into this virtual horizon or artificial horizon stuff because that, to me, I thought that I was under the impression that maybe the horizon really did drop, but now you guys are saying it doesn't drop. So I want to look into that and research that myself. If you guys have any links or anything.
And also with the horizon, you have a lot of stuff competing. You got the ground, you got, higher objects in the distance, you got the air, so there's a lot of stuff that will make stuff kind of, appear to disappear sooner than later. But I don't know how these ballers reconcile perspective, and their curvy Earth, because, it's like, perspective still applies. The laws of perspective, I believe, would still apply even on a globe Earth,
Well,
so.
I just think that the fact that on their models they always have the observer looking down, and every time I go to a beach, I I mean I don't remember looking down. I just feel like I'm looking straight ahead, and their model literally relies on the observer to look down, and I was like, that doesn't really make sense. So
And a lot of it relies on suspending your disbelief. I tend to take a very critical look at this evolution and other things that say just give it time. I've never seen, off on a tangent, sorry, but I've never seen a monkey become a man. Give it time. I've never looked down to look at the earth. You're looking down at 0.5 of a degree. It's so small you don't even notice it. Just trust us. Don't trust your senses. I don't believe this. Just trust the science. And that's the thing where it's like you have to give up your will to, and sometimes I get a little extreme with this stuff, but you have to give up your will to these magicians that are basically, using their will to override yours and influence your view of reality. In a way, it's like, kind of like it's got a magical component to it, if you want to go that extreme, where it's like, don't believe your senses, the stormtroopers are not there or whatever, and it's like they're overriding your will to look at reality in a way.
right.
So it's
I mean, to me, it's like as far as like evolution is concerned, it's to me it's just an interpretation of reality. So even if I were to accept evolution, I feel like the evidence for evolution could also be supported by the theory of common designer. I mean, uh, to me though,
yes,
just the fact that they take that standpoint of like even if we accept okay, well, we won't even accept common designer, then my question is okay, well, how did this come to be? Like you think this universe just expanded out of nothing? Like just the mental capacity to try to comprehend everything in the universe being compressed to a singularity. That seems like magic to me. But like the thing is,
magic, pretty much.
yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But this is the type of stuff we're taught in schools and the type of stuff they believe. So
Well, the socialists push God out wherever they start. I mean, they have a long march through the institutions, and they start very slowly. And time is on their side because they're very committed, and so they know, okay, we got to get rid of God in the schools. And so this theory invites a scientific mechanism without a divine truth maker, or without a divine designer, and it invites, arrogant man to come in here and think, well, I can understand the world without, God revealing any revelation to me. Don't get me wrong; people can still be scientific, but the poisonous root is pushing God out. And there are atheist flat earthers. deist flat earthers, people are all over the spectrum. The point is the poisonous spirits that are invited with this thing, where it's like you're not looking at truth anymore. It's like, well, how can I, magically create this world that I have to, indoctrinate others with once I get control of the information and the systems and stuff.
So, I don't think I've ever met.
Hey, Spurs, how you doing?
It's me.
Good.
Hey.
Sorry to interrupt you. Part-time.
Hello.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I just don't think I ever met an atheistic flat earther. I don't see how those I don't see how that can work out. If you see like all the lies that are going on in the world, and then you see just so much evidence of, I mean, to me, I think a flat earth, we're the center of the universe. I mean, if that doesn't hint that we have a creator, then what will? I think that makes it kind of obvious.
And some of these flat earth conversion stories are very compelling. People are like, I found God through flat earth, and stuff like that. I found purpose through, flat earth, whereas, atheistic science is like, well, good luck not killing yourself, find a purpose for your life without God, go ahead, or submit yourself to a scientific cleric or whatever, who can try to give you as much meaning as they can out of the universe. And some people, they can withstand this onslaught of meaninglessness, but others can't, and some lose hope. So why not just start from the system that gives hope for the most people?
Right. And I guess that's my biggest issue with just a scientific mindset. I feel like you should apply the scientific mindset to certain cases, but nowadays people have turned science into religion, where they try to apply the scientific mindset into all cases. And the thing is, the scientific mindset operates on things have to be falsified. If they would not work with a falsified, if a thing is unfalsifiable. So they're secluding themselves. They might be secluding themselves from truth. So even though God can't necessarily be falsifiable, that doesn't mean he doesn't exist. And they say, well, you can use that argument for unicorns. And I would say, well, yeah, but the importance of unicorns and God, I mean, those are two different importance. If God exists, and who cares about unicorns? We're postulating, or we're contemplating the ultimate thought, the ultimate conceivable thought. So the smaller auxiliary thoughts, I mean, they don't even really matter. So that's why we don't even give those things attention. But I don't think they understand that. And it's sad because, like, I don't know, it's sad when someone's religious and they don't even understand they're religious.
Well, I mean, like you say, we were called to worship. And if you're not worshiping the right thing, you're going to worship the wrong thing. And science, with its materialistic focus, basically discounts the spirit world, which can't be seen. And guess where God is? He's in the spirit world. And so you're not going to see his unseen influence on your life, and you're going to reject it when you do. And so, people need to be careful about, the roads that they're going down with this stuff. I mean, maybe there were unicorns, but they're all extinct. We don't know. Or maybe they're somewhere else where we can't see. Or maybe they were genetic experiments by these advanced people in the past. I mean, these people in the past, we have this narrative now that says that these people in the past were dumb and stupid, and we're progressing with progressivism toward a beautiful human utopia. No, that's not true. We had technology back then that we lost. People were committing nuclear war against each other even back then by radioactive samples in the soil. So they had technology back then to do things we can't even imagine. They were doing drilling, probably with acoustic drilling to shape stone in perfect ways where it's not going to crack. They had access to technology that we don't even get access to anymore. And so how can we even assume that we know everything? And then you got the timetable that's based off of carbon dating. Carbon dating is problematic. You can kill a seal right now and it'll date millions of years. And these scientists, take dates out of thin air and just, slap a date on it to fit their theories. People need to wake up and see the ways that, we're being deceived. And that's, kind of the spirit that comes with, the flat earth community, kind of, figuring out for themselves and, kind of doing the work that, these scientists may or may not have done.
Yeah. And I just think that, like, for the people who are awake, it's almost like, what is the next step that we take? I mean, we can sit here and try to argue with someone who believes in the globe, till the cows come home. But I think it's almost a useless argument, because fundamentally we just think differently,
Yeah, I mean, this is for the people that are on the fence, and to get them on a road where they don't have to fall into, forgive me for being a zealot, and stuff, falling into darkness, because it's hard to come back, once your funding is based off of you going with a ball model, and you got a house and a mortgage and kids and a reputation on the line. It's harder to do that once you've gone down that road than, starting out and saying, hey, maybe there's another system here that, you could also take into account here, so for the people that are on the fence, hopefully they hear this and they can go down, a path, that leads somewhere. Like I was talking about with Tesla and stuff like that. We should have had a Tesla revolution already. Tesla, it seems like Tesla knew some of this stuff. And then he died penniless because he wouldn't play ball, and they burned down his lab. They wouldn't give him any patents, and he died pretty much penniless, living hand to mouth, the greatest genius ever known. And we give honor to semi-frauds like Einstein, whose theory of relativity, more and more seems like a crock. And then, he dies, Tesla dies, and the government comes and steals his patents and hires a scientist to interpret some of his greatest writings and discoveries based off of the ether and stuff like that. That's the road that we should have gone down to get Jetson's level technology, not with these controllers and these people that want to stranglehold the process and get all the benefits from the process, putting us down pigeonhole paths,
Right.
Hello. Yeah. So, you all right, guys?
Yeah, man. You go ahead, Spurs. We've not heard from you.
So yeah, I've just uploaded the video just a couple of days ago about the ISS. Seems to be a problem with the direction. So I'm just like making an appeal to the ballers or anybody who can explain why it appears to go in one direction and the other direction. We've had various different answers, mounts, position, orientation, but nothing really sufficient to say why they see the ISS going in two different directions from basically the same location in America. Obviously, Florida, one is in Texas, but looking at the moon, you should basically see the same thing. That's how I understand it anyway. So if it's possible, can we play?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Can I play the video?
Yeah, of course. Do you get
just
sound
before
with
we
it as
do
well?
that, though, Nath, could you respond to a message in chat, a comment in chat? Nathan Oakley has to swallow his pride and apologise or show some sort of remorse for the way he has treated certain people, Paul, the Rumpus, and Soundly in particular. Do you want to address that, or should I? Can I?
Yeah, you go ahead. My kid's got like a noisy train that's making a load of noise. You can probably hear it in the background. So if you want to address it, be my guest.
All right. So for the benefit of everybody else, this message has come from Chris with the Roman numerals. And he's not happy because Rumpus, Soundly, and Paul, I don't know what his issue is with Soundly. I don't remember Soundly really having any part in this. But his issue is with Paul and the Rumpus because basically, when we were going through the Isle of Man debate, halfway through it, Nathan and I had a conversation, and it was more at my request than anything because I realized that these slimy ball earthers were pulling the conversation away from the points that really needed to be made. And I asked Nathan, would he consider the option, or would he consider changing it so that where there is a distraction technique to pull them away from being defeated, he would keep it on track so that we could get the kill, rather than allow it to go wandering off based on nonsense that they're literally distracting, because these people are not stupid. These people realize when they're cornered, they will distract, which is why the likes of Grim V would go bobbly, 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 and do anything at the point where it becomes the kill. And a good example of that would be Rumpus got 25 minutes of uninterrupted nonsense on refraction, where he failed to mention that light bends up. And in contrast, Chris tried to speak, and he didn't get a single clear word in because he was spoke over permanently for 10 or 15 minutes. So to stop that nonsense, I asked Nathan, would he consider keeping the track or the conversation on track and not letting it get distracted when it gets to the crescendo of a point being made? And unfortunately, Paul and the Rumpus fell victim to that, because from that point on, we kept things on track. We didn't allow them to be distracted, and both Paul and Rumpus got cornered. So with regards to the request that Nathan shows some sort of remorse or some sort of apology to different people how he's been treated, no, there won't be any apology, because you guys will distract when you're cornered and claim victory afterwards because we didn't win our points. Not because you won your point, but because we didn't win it. So there won't be any apology. Nathan's tactics on this were fantastic.
So soundly, I think they're referring, I haven't been keeping up with the chat to be honest, but in regards to soundly, I think they're presumably referencing when I called him a lying worm or words to that effect. And the reason was simple. I asked him if Lake Pontchartrain was below sea level. I think that was verbatim what I said, is Lake Pontchartrain below sea level? And there was some back and forth, maybe 10 minutes elapsed, and eventually it was put an end to by Soundly himself, who went and dug up a diagram that showed that Pontchartrain does go below sea level. Now, later this was then bandied up in the comments, well, you didn't ask him if it went below sea level, you asked him if it is below sea level. And the bottom line is, his response when I asked him, is it below sea level, wasn't, well, occasionally it goes below sea level. For all he knew, it could have been below sea level at that very moment. His answer was absolutely no. It doesn't.
Yeah.
It isn't. And it is, at times, below sea level. Therefore, I called him a lying worm, because it was by his own data. So he knew what was on that data. He knew it periodically dropped below sea level. And when he asserted quite vitriolically that it didn't and wasn't below sea level, it was a complete nonsense lie. He knew it by virtue of his own data. So I don't apologise for that in the slightest. I stand by it and think he's a snivelling little worm.
And I support you, Nathan. At the end of the day, these guys were cornered. They were destroyed. Literally, they were battered into the corner because we kept it on track. Now, if you're expecting an apology for that, Chris, what you're actually asking us to do is allow you guys to worm your way out of nonsense when you get cornered. Because you can be cornered. You do get cornered, and we will corner you because you haven't got any evidence to prove your points. You can't prove axial rotation. You can't prove curvature. You can't prove gravity. So if you're asking us to allow you to continue...
Just before I do my link, sorry, I want to do one last link before we round out about half an hour's time. But there's something else you've asked for from Paul.
Oh, me?
Yeah. Evidence of a molten iron core that can self-perpetuate.
Yeah, Paul's got this constant claim that the he believes that the Earth has got this molten iron solid core. And I've asked him for the evidence for it, and he hasn't produced it. But the point is, I'm asking him for evidence that proves that iron, when it's in its molten or its supercritical state, can produce or self-perpetuate its own charge simply by movement. And to this date, Paul hasn't produced it. And
I'm going to cut you off there. Spurs is waiting in the wings to... very patiently waiting to do a presentation. I'm going to do a very quick link, and then we're going to pass over to Spurs for his video. So as I've just said, we have about half an hour left on this live stream. If you did want to join the panel, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video. If you would like to support this channel, there is a link also in the info box below this video, and a super chat that runs alongside the show while it is live. If you do join the panel, immediately say a quick hello so that we know you're a real person who has not got in nefarious intent with your joining, and also please do not swear. If you are ejected for any reason, please do not try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. If you've not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date. If you've not shared, please share, as it increases the live audience, and this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. As I say, we have approximately 30 minutes left on this live stream. Spurs, did you want to present? I'll stick the camera onto you, my friend.
You on my screen now?
Yep, we have now. You go ahead. Do you want to make it full screen and click play?
Yeah. According to the information we are given, the ISS orbits the Earth in the same direction as the supposed rotation of the Earth. That is to say, from west to east. So when one records the ISS from, say, America, looking directly at the moon, we should see the ISS pass the moon from right to left, as in accordance with the Earth's rotation. So in other words, the Earth and the ISS pan left or in that direction, the moon will pan right or in that direction.
That is a bit odd.
Okay, so you can hear me, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Why does
So-
it go the opposite way?
Can you verbally explain what we've just seen, please,
show the
Spurs?
contention. Sorry, say that again, Snape.
Can you verbally explain what we've just been watching, just so you verbalise it as well as having it in text?
Oh, yeah. So how I understand it is the ISS should rotate in the same way the Earth spins, and so we should always see the ISS rotate that way around the Earth. Two positions. Look at the line of sight to the moon. For me, it's impossible that Red should see the ISS come around and in any fashion go up. And where does it, so they have to explain how it traveled. It looked like it traveled from north to south when it only travels from west to east. So I've had lots of explanations. So the thing that we have to see is the position of the moon, the ISS, location of Enjoy Your Universe and Red, and show how it's possible for the ISS to go in two different directions. So we're saying, people are saying, well, there's an answer. There's a reason that Red could have been facing this way, or he could have been looking that way. But for me, wherever you put the moon, wherever you place the moon, the ISS still goes past it to the left. So if anyone can show or demonstrate Red's location, the moon, the ISS, and how the two got two different results.
I'm not even sure that explanation works because the moon looked like it was oriented the same in each display you showed. So that is kind of weird.
So how would you explain it then? I mean, just off the bat, like, what would you say? Would you say,
I guess to be devil's advocate, they're probably gonna maybe say retrograde motion. I don't know.
Well, that's another answer. There you go. I've had all kinds of answers. People are seriously trying to figure out how the two. I mean, even Red, he asked the question yesterday. He said, "Don't they cross paths?" And I thought, well, no, they don't cross paths. It would just go diagonally down, so in the opposite way, basically. I'll just go back to Red's one. Way Red's.
Spurs, you were meant to be on with Sean Hufford last night. What happened?
Well, I just wanted to hear their response. Nothing was complete. It would have just been a big argument. They were just going over different possible answers. Jared had an answer. Epistemology had an answer. Sean had an answer, and they were basically disagreeing with each other.
So they didn't get to a consensus.
Absolutely, no chance.
Okay.
They would have.
Well, I think there's a website where you can actually plot out where the ISS will be at. So if we could actually plot out the path of the ISS, we can make sense of it. But from that footage, it doesn't make sense.
They said if epistemology tried to follow the path of this, and then he said, but it doesn't make sense for it to go back this way. So you'd have to imagine if this is going up, 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 up.
So isn't your question then, does the ISS go retrograde or not?
Could be, yeah. That could be one possible. But I just want an explanation, how I give an explanation, so I understand it visually.
Are both of those videos authentic though? I mean,
well, that's for you to decide. That's not for me to decide. This is taken by Red Rhetoric in November in Florida. This is taken by Enjoy Your Universe in December in Texas.
So that's not for me to decide. I haven't made any claims about any fake videos. I've just said, why are they going in this opposite direction? The moon, you can see, is almost identical. You've got the ears there in the same position.
It's actually a really good question, that. Nathan, have you got any views on it?
I think Ranty caught it going in a different direction too, didn't he?
Yeah, but he deliberately faked it, didn't he?
Yeah, well,
to make the point that it could be faked.
No. Well, that's the reason I brought it up, because somebody's saying, well, how do we know the authenticity of this footage? Hello, Jamie. How you doing? Can you hear us, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good to have you. So what I'm saying is, yeah, I mean, that's no more or less likely to be thrown into the pot. It's just footage of the ISS transiting the moon. The fact that we know he's made it is irrelevant. It's just other footage of it travelling in a different direction, right? It's all about being able to validate this stuff and verify this stuff.
I mean, I can't. I've tried to. I mean, I've imagined if it was going around the moon. Let's say this was the Earth, and this is going around the moon. How, in order for it to go back this way, it would have to go around, down to the south, and then kind of loop, and then go back. I can't see how it can change. If it has to follow the Earth's spin. That's what they say. It doesn't go against the Earth's spin. So that was very important. So if I can get an explanation, I don't want to hear things like, "Oh, well, I don't understand this," and it's simply, you have to kind of show.
Spurs, would you link in the side chat, the green chat, the video for not Red's video, but the other guy's video?
Yeah, it's actually under both in the description.
Okay, if it's in the description, I'll get it from there.
Yeah, both are in the description anyway.
It's a valid question. How can the ISS go apparently go retrograde on model? And I don't think it can. I mean, my comment on it was that it's way too slow for it to be real. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at, if you try and do if you try and capture the ISS transit, it's really quick. I mean, it zips across so much faster than what you'd expect it to go. That was my gut reaction. But I'm just looking at the other guy, Nikon. So ISS Lunar Transit, it must be that one. Enjoy your universe. Yeah, there's no way. I mean, if you just get that guy's video up and look at what he claims is his lunar transit, that is nowhere near quick enough, and it's in the wrong direction.
You sure must be Nathan, or you stopped?
You're back on again. If you wanted to show something.
Oh no, I was just talking through it as because basically, they're not. They give explanations as to, why they've said, oh, we've told you why this happened. Yeah, I've been told many different answers as to why, different answers. But what we need is
I'm not entirely sure if we're going to catch the tail end of the original stream, so I will get the people who are in the Hangout at the moment back online, and we may have 10 minutes of this particular live stream, which won't be on the recording, but just so I can round out and say a very massive thank you to all of the audience for being here. So I'll transition to my photographs, or well, to my projection screen, while I check if we do have anybody still in the Hangout. If we don't, I'll say a big thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and, of course, sharing this show. Ah, back. My computer crashed. I'm really sorry about that, guys. Can you all still hear me?
No.
You can't?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, this is going to be a very short round out to the show. I'm not even. I am streaming this on the secondary channel, but it won't get recorded. So, unfortunately, where the computer crashed is where the other live stream will end for the main channel. But I don't know if you guys had any points particularly that you wanted to add before we round out and thank the audience. If so, now's your opportunity.
Are there any ballers that can explain why this ISS transit appears to be going back retrograde?
Yeah, I mean, they're just gonna. It's gonna have to be more than an explanation. It's gonna have to be demonstrate visual, just to show the position of the moon, red rhetoric, guy in Texas, and the ISS. Very simple things.
Well, I'm a baller, so I'm just going to commence ad hominem attacks. What's your level of education? Are you qualified to think or, go against the scientific priesthood here? Because we're about to cast you out, buddy. Oh, yeah. Guys, we got a heretic.
I didn't realize Nathan's computer had failed on him, so...
Yeah, it just completely died. I mean, as I say, other than asking people to address the different transits of the ISS, was there anything else? Maybe, I don't know if Jamie wanted to add something before we round out, because we've not heard from him at all. Maybe not. I think with that I'll probably round out the show, as there isn't a great deal left to talk about after that computer crash. So, as I say, with that I will say a massive, huge, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and sharing this show. If you've not done so already, and if this is part of the main broadcast, please like, comment, share and subscribe. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.